All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started and then just let people in as they come. So good morning, everyone. Bonjour, Annie. My name is Taryn Basson. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at the Northern Ontario Angels. So we will begin this workshop by acknowledging that we are meeting virtually on Indigenous lands that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge all of the treaties and traditional territories on which all of you are in attendance gathered today. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is the Investor Ready program. It's an entrepreneurial training program designed to equip participants with the skills, knowledge, and tools required to create compelling business propositions and attract potential investors. So the Investor Ready program is a joint effort between Link North and the Northern Ontario Angels, bringing together industry expertise to help entrepreneurs navigate the complexities of launching and scaling a successful business venture. We have a lot of new participants today, so I'm just going to briefly introduce who the Northern Ontario Angels are. So Northern Ontario Angels is one of the top angel organizations in North America. Since our inception, we've closed 542 deals and have injected over $255 million into Northern Ontario-based companies. We are also governed by a regional board of directors and supported by an admin team, along with 9 part-time consultants who are on the ground working with entrepreneurs and investors to foster economic development within our 8 chapter communities across Northern Ontario. So please feel free to reach out to me for more information if you're a Northern Ontario-based entrepreneur seeking capital, or if you're interested in becoming an accredited investor with us. So now I'm going to introduce Ross McDonald, Business Development Specialist at Link North.
Thanks, Darren. So welcome everyone to part 2 of our first workshop series for Investor Ready program. So for those of you who didn't attend last week, no worries, you can catch up pretty easily. I think Jerry's going to give a recap of last week, as well as Taryn has sent everyone the PowerPoint, and we'll drop the recording in the of last week's session in the chat. Just to touch briefly on Link North, we support entrepreneurs and businesses during all stages of development with product technology development, commercialization and scaling, as well as growing and modernizing your operations. I also want to mention to Investor Ready participants in the Timmins region that you can access Link North's free business advisory services to assist you with developing your business model canvas, value proposition, and other things as you go through this program. And I'll provide our contact information on Link North in the chat box. Thanks. I'll pass it over to Jeremy.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the NOA and to Link North, so Taryn and Ross, for having me again today to present the part 2 of the Business Model Canvas workshop. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending. So for those who didn't attend last session, as Ross alluded to, please feel free to watch the recording. I believe that it has been made available by Taryn, and the link will be in the chat at some point in time. For those who don't know, my name is Jeremy Iloma. I'm a business development specialist with the Timmins Economic Development Corporation, and I support activities within the Business Enterprise Center, as well as lead a special project called Core 5. I'm located in Timmins, Ontario, and I've been in this role for approximately 5 years, but I've worked in business development for over 8 years with a stint in the private sector, and through that had the opportunity to work with a number of different organizations in Northern Ontario, across all industries like mining, forestry, agriculture, healthcare, etc., including municipalities, when it came to business planning, strategic planning, and helping businesses secure grants and funding. So this is really my bread and butter. And just a little bit about the Business Enterprise Center. The Business Enterprise Center is one of 54 small business enterprise centers in the province of Ontario, located in Timmins within the TEDC office. Our goal is to support entrepreneurs and SMEs throughout the region with dedicated funding through the Starter Company and Summer Company programs, as well as providing workshops such as this to help build capacity. So really, it is an additional support to provide entrepreneurs and SMEs with resources and just help them throughout any stage of their business life cycle. So similar to the first workshop, I would like to try and have a active discussion and a very, participative session today. So please ask questions, be respectful. There's no bad questions. I do have the chat open on my second screen here, so I will see questions as they come in, so I will try and answer them. There will be a period at the end of today's session for questions should you not feel comfortable typing it in the chat and wish to ask in person. So obviously today we're going to continue our conversation on the business model canvas, or BMC as I may refer to it. We're going to start with a bit of a recap of the first workshop and then dive right in to the remaining quadrants of the business model canvas, which include customer segments, customer relationships, channels, the cost structure, as well as revenue streams. So again, the overall goal and purpose of the two workshops is to help listeners and to help you guys develop a thorough understanding of that BMC. So really you're going to learn how to create, deliver, and capture value, to refine entrepreneurial ideas, to pivot existing businesses, so to adapt, adopt, or expand to situations that may arise. So think of COVID-19, and to identify potential innovative opportunities. So realistically, a lot of the information that we may cover today and that we covered in the first workshop will be able to act as a primer or precursor, and as relevant information that could be used in a number of other business-related documents, like a business plan or information that might actually just be requested by funders. So what is the business model canvas? It is a strategic tool that can be utilized by entrepreneurs, business owners, management, innovators, really truly anyone, to quickly and easily define and communicate a business idea, concept, model, as well as products or services. So effectively, it is a one-page paper that acts as a canvas, as it's alluded to, for high-level information. It enables users to have a time-effective method of quickly getting a bird's eye view or picture of what a business idea, concept, or a product or service may actually entail. So all of those quadrants. And really, it helps users gain an understanding of the business and to start making connections between the idea, concept, product, process, whatever it may be, and how to turn it into an actual business. Finally, it helps users identify what those internal and external drivers may be that will impact or influence the business. So the business model canvas is structured in a way that it covers it's structured and covers a certain fundamental elements. So those quadrants that I've mentioned, and they include question-based prompts that are designed to engage and guide the user's thoughts. So these elements are based on, desirability, feasibility, and viability. So in other words, can we deliver it? Do customers want it? And what is it worth? And one thing I left the listeners with on the first presentation is the concept of systems thinking, and to ensure that when you're actually looking at a business model or using this tool, that you have to start thinking of all the individual parts and how they work together and are integrated within the business model as a whole. So as a recap for what we covered last week, we looked at the quadrants related to the value proposition, key activities, key resources, and key partners. So the value proposition was really the fundamental piece of last week's workshop, and Taryn will be conducting a workshop on how to effectively communicate the value proposition. So I highly encourage you to attend that when it occurs. But essentially, the value proposition describes a bundle of products or services that create value for customers. So it is actually what is being exchanged. People pay money for that value that you are delivering to them. Oftentimes, when you look at a value proposition, you ask questions or answer questions related to, okay, well, what problem is being solved? Is there a pain point or like a certain issue that is being relieved? Is there an improvement upon something that you think can be done better? So that is a value proposition. And I was giving examples from Walmart. So Walmart's value proposition, for example, is that they are a one-stop shop. You are able to buy everything that you could possibly need in one location. Additionally, their value proposition is a low price point, or what used to be a low price point. So that is how they try and deliver values to their customers. They are able to bring everyone into one location. They can get their groceries, their household items. They can even get their tires changed if needed in certain locations. Key activities are those actions that are crucial in making the business model work and developing or delivering, sorry, that value proposition. So it includes all of the processes and steps that need to be taken. So think of the resources used, the time taken, the expertise needed, the distribution, the strategy, all of that stuff. So for example, the key activities of Walmart, or one of the key activities that they have, is their inventory management software. That is a highly, highly intensive software that is sort of used at multiple levels of the organization, from the distribution warehouse down to the storefront level. So where the associates can use the Telzon guns to scan and see, okay, we have this much of the product on inventory, this much is on order, and this is how much is in the warehouse. Key resources are those key drivers that are needed to create and deliver the value proposition. Think of who is involved, what is used or consumed, as in physical, intellectual, human, financial, etc. So the key resources for Walmart, for example, were the storefront. They have a very, very good website. Their ERPs, or enterprise resource planning software, their inventory management software, their employees. These are all key resources. Finally, we talked about partners, and the partners are those organizations or individuals or suppliers that are needed to help create and deliver that value proposition. So again, who must be relied on? Consider the activities that that have to be done. Do you have to outsource some of these activities? So for Walmart, they include some of the product suppliers, and the representatives. So I say representatives. So for example, Labatt Brewing, they generally have a representative in each area, and then they go and work with store management to say, this is what you should be carrying in your store because of these stats. There's IT professionals, etc. So that is a very, very brief recap of what we covered last week. Everyone should have received a copy of the business model canvas in an email. So this one again is branded for the Investor Ready program. Like last week, I wanted to guide everyone's attention to the overall structure and design of the tool. It includes the fundamentals that all entrepreneurs, business owners, and innovators should consider. So those, the key partners, activities, resources, the value proposition, customer relationships and segments, channels, and the cost structure and revenue streams. So what last week I sort of mentioned that intuitively, the right side of that business model canvas focuses on the customer or external drivers, where the left side really focuses on the internal business drivers. So both external and internal factors are converging and meet around the value proposition again, which is that main exchange of value between your potential business or innovative opportunity or product or service to the customers and clients. So again, I reiterated last week that, this tool is commonly used by organizations like Link North, the NOA, the Business Enterprise Center, other business and innovation support ecosystem members to work with entrepreneurs to really sort of talk at a high level, but it's actually super, super useful for existing businesses and innovators. I gave the example last week of how I used this during the COVID-19 pandemic to help businesses identify those specific quadrants that were impacted by the pandemic. So whether it be the sort of shutdowns or the that impacted, or supply chain that impacted, okay, well, were they key partners that were they key distribution partners? Were they the companies that you couldn't help? Were they your suppliers? Okay, how did that impact the customer relationship? So we actually were able to use this tool to isolate specific pain points to try and come up with a strategy or solution to, or intermediate solution to address them during the pandemic. So jumping right into this week's session, we're going to start with customer segments. So really the main question to this is, for whom are you creating value for, and what needs do you meet, or what problems do you resolve? So customer segments can also be considered a target market. So this is a key thing when looking at marketing and looking at business planning, right? Really, when you create a product, service, process, you want to deliver it to someone. So who is that? There are a lot of things that you need to consider, however, when looking at your customer segments, because it could be impacted by or influenced by age, gender, interest, spending habits. Realistically, it could impact a lot of things or very little, right? So is it a mass market that you're looking at, or are you looking at a very niche market? Can they be further segmented? How do you plan to target certain profitable customers, for example? Is there a certain customer base that are more likely to spend money on your product versus others? Um, who is your most important customer? If there's a larger larger customer segment, sorry, but there's specific segments within that large base that are more likely to buy a product than others, right? So how do you target them specifically? And then if there are any in the pre-commercialization stage, who are they, and who are the potential early adopters to your technologies or products or services? I'm going to be using Walmart as an example again. It's quite simply just to show how we can apply this tool to a larger organization. Look at Walmart. Walmart honestly targets virtually everyone, right? When you think about it, there are multiple departments. You have sports, you have electronics, you have grocery, you have clothing, you have the pharmacy. So you have to think that, they really have a lot of things. They have pets, automotive. So they have a multifaceted platform for whom they're targeting, right? But what's funny is that when you think about it, their markets can actually be segmented even further, right? So within for example, the pet department, well, are you targeting people who have fish? Are you targeting people who have dogs, cats, any other types of pets, right? You can segment each customer base further. Toys, same thing. Sports, they have bicycles, they have golf stuff, they have soccer equipment, they have hockey equipment, depending on the season. So really, they're trying to appeal to a very, very, very big market, but then they are able to target individual segments within that mass market. So when you're looking at an entrepreneurial opportunity, you need to consider, all right, who am I creating value for, and who is most likely to purchase this product? The next quadrant is customer relationships. This is a really interesting one. And one thing to consider is, how you or a business or the product or service may interact with its customers. So when I say interact with customers, when you look at the box on the right hand side here, on the right hand side over here, it says what types of interactions and relationships do your different customer segments expect? So that's really the key question. Is it personal? Is it self-service? Is it automated? Is it all of it together? One way to sort of figure this out is to create what's called a user journey map, which is going to highlight all of the points of interaction that, the business or product service, whatever it may be, will have with the end user, right? Is it direct to consumer? Are you working through an intermediary? Do you have a helpline, for example, if your product or service has something, an issue with it? An individual last week brought up that their value proposition is more experience based. So their customer relationship is likely going to be a lot more personal than maybe an online retail opportunity, right? So if your product or service is very experience based, what's going to happen is you're going to be with the client, probably delivering a specific service and being more personable with them and having actual conversations with them. The touch point or the time at which that you spend with the customer is going to be a lot greater than that. For example, for the retail experience online, for example, where you are looking at a website, there might be a little chatbot function where you can ask questions, or you're looking at reviews. And if you have a complaint, you send an email. So very different customer relationships, right? So a relationship can actually help define the operations of the organization. That's why this is really important, and identify potential efficiencies and inefficiencies. So the operations perspective from experience-based opportunity versus the online retail opportunity is vastly different, right? The operations are going to require a website versus, okay, well, an experience base, you're going to have the expertise and knowledge on hand to be able to deliver the value to the end user. So when you look at this, think of in-person, third-party, online, automated, events, phone, whatever it may be. And then to provide the example from Walmart's perspective, their relationships our customer service, and I have an asterisk here because last week I indicated that when they went through the entire process of becoming a supercenter, they sort of shifted their focus away from customer service. So it used to be there used to be where there'd be a blue vest in each department where they would have the knowledge and expertise about the products within their department. That's not the case anymore because there's generally one blue vest or employee that's covering a large section of the storefront. And additionally, instead of having an employee within each department that has knowledge, they really only have teams that do stocking and zoning or facing, which is cleaning up the aisles or the modular changes that they do. So it's changed drastically. The relationships now have changed as well. Look at the automated checkouts that we have nowadays. Before, it used to be all employees and cashiers that are checking out and talking to you as you purchase your products, right? Vastly different now because they have the automated checkouts. There's specialized services in certain locations. So, for automotive, that's the specific point. If you go get your tires changed or you get specific oil changes or things like that done, so they have specific expertise on hand. And then the other relationships that they have that are vital to the organization are partnerships with charities, events, and foundations. Walmart wants to have a very good presence in the community, so they generally try and sponsor and attend these types of events. So again, in-person and feedback-oriented relationships, you see on the receipts, hey, fill out this survey. That is a type of relationship and a touch point. The next quadrant is key channels. So these are the avenues or mediums to how the customer will be able to contact your business, or interact with your product or service. And one way to think about it is, how do the customers actually want to be reached? Is it digital? Is it physical? Is it sort of direct or indirect channel, like through a third party? This is typically considered, a marketing function. So it's like a method of communication. Some people prefer email, some people prefer the phone, some people prefer, social media, or even a traditional news outlet. It's all varied depending on that customer segment. So again, this is all tied together. So you really need to consider your customer segment. Okay, what is the key channel for this customer segment? So how do we tell customers, about our value proposition? And you got to consider where the customers are, right? In Northern Ontario, I would argue that we have a very unique type of business relationship with our customers. It is vastly different than Southern Ontario. And the reason I say that is because I would say that us in Northern Ontario are more personable. They prefer when you pick up a phone and talk to them, or you go do business in person. While that environment is changing as a whole, Southern Ontario really does a lot of business via email, or really email or social media. And that may not be the most effective way. So I could talk like internally, the TEDC, the Business Enterprise Center, when we do marketing activities, we like to use radio, which is an older method of marketing, but it's very effective for us because people in Northern Ontario still listen to the radio. So that's how we know that we could reach our clients. We also use Facebook versus LinkedIn, because we find that a lot of our businesses and business owners haven't really made that transition over to LinkedIn yet. So understanding the key channels on how to contact our main customers is really important. Again, so which channels work best and which are going to be most cost effective, right? We could dump money into investing into utilizing a platform, but not see the same results as we would for a similar or lesser amount of money in a different channel. So think of how you plan to reach, acquire, keep, and grow those customer segments. For the individual last week that was mentioning, for example, their experience-based opportunity. This is a unique opportunity, and I was thinking about this. And one way, for example, you can reach them through tourism organizations. You could have strategic marketing or channel like marketing opportunities, what they call guerrilla marketing, where you place advertisements in strategic locations. Maybe it's an airport, maybe it's down south in Toronto, maybe it's partnering with potential overnight accommodations, so hotels, motels, or Airbnbs, to sort of advertise the experience that you're going to be offering, right? You want to target those people that are coming to Northern Ontario for an experience already, So what better place than to look at those locations where, okay, they're going to be traveling in these locations. This is where they will see my advertisements. So it's really, really considering the channels. And again, this one ties in specifically with customer segments and the rest of the business model canvas. Walmart, what are their key channels? How do they interact with their customer segments? Well, we see commercials quite often, right? So they utilize the TV to just sort of say, hey, Walmart is low price. We have all these types of products. We're here to serve you. They have their storefronts. This is a key area where they do communicate with their customers, whether it be with the sort of advertisements that you hear typically from the electronics department, sort of saying, hey, we have a new deal on the phone, on these phones this time, or come check out the electronics department. We have this on sale this week. Also, when I've mentioned the receipt, hey, can you please provide feedback? That's a channel of communication. I've seen some level of Walmart social media sort of communication. One thing that a lot of people may not know about is called SEO, so search engine optimization. So this is really, really key when you're running a retail operation, is to have really strong search engine optimization so that when somebody searches for a certain product or service, for example, on Google or whatever search platform you use, that you will be able to find that product, and that product is going to be found on Walmart. Or if certain keywords are highlighted for a product or service, that the Walmart sort of link to that will pop up. So that's really, really important. So search engine optimization I view as a channel to making sure that your product or service is up at the forefront of a search. And then finally, the last channel that's pretty obvious is a website. They have a website available to highlight what products or services can be purchased, and then they have information as well as reviews for people who have previously purchased it. So now we're going to jump into probably what I would say is one of the most important aspects, the two most important aspects of the business model canvas, the first being the cost structure and then the revenue streams. So this is really, really, really important. You need to consider all of the monetary costs of operating a business. Now, the tool, like I mentioned, could be used by a startup, an existing business, or maybe a business that is looking to acquire another one, or somebody looking to acquire that. So you need to consider all of the startup costs, the operating costs, and then potential expansion costs. Now, expansion costs come into a caveat, like if you're a startup, only really consider the startup or operating costs, or if you're an existing business, only consider the operating costs. The only time you should actually really use the business model canvas to consider those expansion costs is if you want to increase your capacity or actually expand your business in some way, shape, or form. That's when you start highlighting those new factors, those new drivers that will actually impact the expansion in the business, the existing business overall. So as I've mentioned, everything interrelates within the business model canvas, right? So you need to consider all of the costs as they relate to the key activities, those key resources, as well as partnerships. So what costs are there to help you achieve your value proposition, right? So you got to consider what is needed to create and deliver the promised value. So resources, activities. What you want to highlight are what costs the most, what costs the least, what are your fixed costs. So those could be your variables, your rents, and what are your fixed costs. It could be your overhead, so your rent, things that you know are going to be constantly the same price. Your variable costs, which could actually be utilities, etc. What are your profit margins? So from a entrepreneurial perspective and an innovative perspective, this could be vastly, vastly different. Starting a business, you need to know, okay, what are the costs going to be associated with my licenses, permits if necessary? Do I need a storefront? Do I need a physical location? What are those assets that I need to help deliver the product or service? Do I need raw materials? Do I just need a laptop to be able to code? Do I need to create a website? What is the cost of creating a website? Do I need employees? Well, what is the cost of employees? Do they need benefits? Do they need specific WSIB coverage? So there's a lot of little factors that you need to consider when it comes to cost structure. I know Link North and the Business Enterprise Center will have a vast amount of resources available to sort of identify all those potential costs. So do not hesitate to reach out to Link North for those resources after the fact. So really, there's a lot of little things you can for the startup side. For the innovation side, there's other things that you need to consider, right? When you're creating a product or service, there's probably intellectual property there. Do you need to, file a patent? Should you develop an intellectual property strategy to make sure that that is protected and that no one else can copy or use or develop something similar to you in the future, right? So that is something else to consider. And really, what is the cost of the research and development? What is the cost of the prototyping? What is the cost of the commercialization? Like, what is it going to take for you to get to a point where you can actually monetize your innovation? So that's another way to look at it. So the cost structure is really, 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 really important. And it's going to really identify, can we actually create this business, right? Are the costs too great and are we making enough money? And that's the second part. That's the next thing. So for cost structure for Walmart, you need to consider the product that they need to carry. So they need to spend all this money up front. And as mentioned before, this is why they're able to offer a low cost, because they're buying things in bulk to be distributed to all their stores. So that's a cost. Their inventory is a cost. Then you need to consider all the wages, the salaries, the benefits that they are paying their employees, their managers, all of that. Transportation, both from a retail and online perspective. They pay for all their trucks to come in, deliver the goods, gas, insurance, the vehicles themselves, the maintenance, the online for when they're shipping. Okay, well now they have to work with a shipping provider to ship their products from an online distribution center to your door, right? What are the costs associated with that? Marketing, utilities, bills, their various management information systems with the ERP, their customer relationship management, inventory management. These are all costs to consider. So definitely something that you need to spend time on when developing your business model canvas. So finally, we're going to look at revenue streams. Really, this is fundamentally how a business will convert or take that value proposition and turn it into monetary gain, or how you're going to create money, right? So for what value are different customer segments truly willing to pay, and how are they willing to pay? That's the other key question. How are they going to willing to pay? So let's say it's an existing product, for example, and you're making an improvement to it. It could be a razor, could be a new way of doing coffee, a new cell phone, right? So how are they currently paying for those goods, and how would they prefer paying for those goods? So this is where we've seen sort of a transition lately to subscription-based models for a lot of goods and services. So historically, right? Let's look at TV for an example. Just pulling that out of thin air. You used to get a package, and with the package, you pay X amount a month, and you get all of these channels. It's a vast array of channels, right? Well, introduce Netflix, and now you have a lower monthly subscription cost, but you only have a limited amount of channels that you could look at, right? It's cheaper, it's easier on the consumer. They're willing to pay a less amount for a bundle of goods, but it may not have everything that it used to have before. But what's ironic about that example is now we're moving to an area where there's so many different streaming providers, and they're all offering different channels and services, that we're almost entering back to that, okay, a large bundle of goods for this amount of cost. Subscription-based models, also are. I'll use a razor as an example, because I'm forgetting the name of the company. I think it was called Dollar Shave Club. For example, you could go to Walmart and buy a razor, and for an exorbitant amount of money, and buy the cartridges, etc. Or you can get like a monthly subscription box where you get for $20 a month, you get the product delivered to your door, and this is what you get. So it's a unique model, and it might be a way that people are preferring nowadays. When you look at that and you look at the different ways that people can pay, is it upfront? Is it online? Is it via credit? Is it cash? Is it debit? there are different revenue streams that you can consider. And then what does each revenue stream, for example, contribute to the overall, right? Is it sales? Is it retail? Is it subscription? Is it fees? Is it licensing, servicing, right? Well, it depends on your product or service. That's why I wanted this to be a very participative session. Because, you have a vehicle, you they have multiple revenue streams. Let's say you go to a dealership. You purchase your vehicle, there's a revenue from purchasing the vehicle itself. From there, you have ongoing maintenance costs, which are servicing costs. And now, for certain infotainment features, you pay a monthly subscription. So they're adding new revenue streams throughout. So just think of how money is going to be made on your product or service, innovation. Again, could be subscription, could be membership like a gym, could be contracts, could be contract based. For Walmart, when you look at it, their revenue streams are pretty straightforward in my opinion. They make revenues at their storefront. What they actually do in their daily meetings, if you've ever been to Walmart early in the morning and you see all the employees huddled, they talk about which departments did the most revenues or had the most sales. So they actually highlight for each department, is it pets, is it automotive, is it whatever it may be, and highlight revenues that way. They obviously now have a line item for online sales, and they probably also divvied up based on department. What's unique is they probably have rental revenue as well. So McDonald's is typically partnered with Walmart in a lot of locations. And when you see that, they're likely renting that space and providing a rental income to Walmart for being able to provide their own products or services. And then, they also have vision, pharmacy, and then hair based services. So looking at everything, I wanted to leave, all the listeners with a few key takeaways today. The business model canvas is a multifaceted tool. It is incredibly useful. Use it when you're starting a business. Use it if you're an existing business looking to expand, or just, highlight things that could be, improved upon, to pivot. If you're innovating something, you could use it specifically for an innovation, and it doesn't even have to be for a business model, like for an actual business. Excuse me, look at what the innovation may be, and then ask all the questions that are within those quadrants on the tool, and you'll be able to determine, is there actually value behind that innovation? And if so, okay, well, here's my canvas for the innovation, and then you could take that, okay, well, how can I take that innovation and turn it into a business by using this tool again? Multifaceted. It's quick and effective in terms of helping develop an overall business model, as I've just alluded to. And it really just enables you to easily generate and work through your ideas and concepts without investing a lot of time in business planning. So it's really at the forefront of everything. Again, it's going to help you determine that desirability, that feasibility, and that viability. So the viability was the last component that I talked about in that cost structure and revenue stream area. And that's really the make it or break it, right? So if your business model, idea, process, concept, innovation is too costly and it's not really viable, well, then go back through the model and look at the different quadrants and say, okay, well, how can I change this to actually make it viable? Is there a reason I had to use this potential supplier, for example? They're really costly. Is there another cheaper alternative? Right? And then finally, this information that you're using can be used for other key documentation, right? Business plan, your website, your pitch sheet with the NOA, grants, funding, investor applications. Really, this information you're going to find that the way you summarize everything in the business model canvas is actually probably some of the best way that you can summarize it for these documents. So with that, I'll stop there. I'll ask questions. I want to thank Link North and then the NOA also for allowing me to present again for the second session. As mentioned, please watch the first session if you missed anything. I think the recap sort of covered it, but there is more information there. Contact Link North, contact NOA, contact the BEC with any further questions. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Did anybody have any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourselves and just ask away.
Hi, this is Purva. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
So, no, this was very helpful, Jeremy. Thank you so much. And I was not able to attend the last week's session, so I was able to go in because of the notes you guys sent out and the model, worked and unworked model. So my question is, I know the target market and customer is important, but to identify it, I mean, doing the whole business plan canvas is awesome. But if I need to identify my target niche more, do you suggest first going down with those questions specifically on the marketing side to identify those target, build out the ideal client profile, and then come back to do the whole model?
That is a good way to do it. It all depends on what your business is truly, right? But if you've identified the first thing you're going to need to do is identify your value proposition, because the value proposition will dictate who your customers can be, right? So there's nothing wrong, and you could work through the business model canvas at using whichever quadrant you'd like to do first. So that is a good approach. I mean, identify that value proposition, and then from there, look at your customer segments. Who can they be? And then look at the marketing aspect to, like you've mentioned, identify that ideal customer profile. Because then with that ideal customer profile, like I mentioned with systems thinking, it's all interrelated. And then you could identify multiple, right? And say, okay, well, for this profile, the relationship is going to look like this. The value for that specific segment is this. Different profile, value for that. So you can see how it's sort of all interrelated. And then the key activities and resources for each sort of profile can sort of be applied as well. So that's why this tool is very useful, right? You could really nail down specific customer profiles if needed, or specific values for each customer profile, or you could do it on a more bird's eye view. So looking at the bird's eye view first could be useful because you're identifying everything at a high level. But then in your business plan, for example, that's when you could start really narrowing down each and every single customer segment value for each. And it really shows, for example, that you understand your customer and you know how you want to try and give them value.
Definitely, no, good point, totally. And then if I have three different types of customers, so I have a service business and I have two different types, actually three different types of customers, then do I build out a separate business model for each, or I keep some of the value proposition and the cost common and still separate out the customer relationships and maybe the customer segments, those two separate? How would
That's
that be?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And um, it depends on the entrepreneur or business owner who's actually developing this. I would recommend or suggest realistically, if you have three like distinctive customer segments, but your services are sort of similar, you could sort of build out each of those components separately while keeping some of those key quadrants, for example, the same if they're the same, right? Like the cost structure, the revenue stream might be slightly different. So you can keep like a generalized business model canvas for right, the general customer, or you could sort of keep similar information that's relevant for each, and then just build out those customer segments, relationships, channels as they relate to each one.
Got it. Yeah, both are good ways to do it,
Yeah.
depending on how much detail. And then what is a good way to like go through like editing the model? I know the first version can never be the right one. It's just like doing your first writing. And so how do you do it? Do I exchange it with a peer or send it out to you to look through and then iterate with the feedback?
Great question again. Realistically, this is a living tool, right? For example, if you're doing this as a startup, right, you're
Yeah.
going to have multiple iterations of this tool. If you're an existing business, you're going to look back at what you did maybe a year ago and try and look forward 2-3 years to try and plan out, right? So it's a living tool. So you're right, it should be reviewed and it should be updated on a constant basis. The best way to do that, I mean, if you're an existing business, you can ask your peers potentially to review it, but also feel free to look at the services that Link North has, NOA, the Business Enterprise Center. We're all here to support in that nature. So definitely reach out to Ross and ask for a review. And from there, he'll be able to give feedback. And feedback from multiple sets of eyes might be good as well, because you'll get different perspectives, right? So if you're getting somebody like a third party like Ross to look at it, they might see a perspective that you may not have thought of, or your employees, for example, may not think of.
True, no, that's awesome. I will definitely send it out to Ross for review again. And then do like in your ideal way of how you all at your business center built out and using this business model canvas, is it a good idea to go use it for creating a business plan, or like totally skip doing the long version of the business plan and do it like a leaner way, like a smaller way?
I am an advocate of of a really, really strong business plan. That's been my bread and butter for the last like 8 years. I like writing them. I think it's really important for an entrepreneur or business owner or any management in business to have the skill to be able to write a business plan and then update it, review it, change it, because businesses change over time, right? There are things that come into play that impact industries that may not have impacted an industry 20 years ago. Think of disruptive technologies. So I view the business model canvas as a very, very good precursor, a very good tool to get the general information that's going to guide what you write in the business plan. Now, the business plan itself, now that's a good question, because the business plan doesn't necessarily have to be incredibly detailed, right? It all depends on the purpose of the plan. Who is it for? Are you an entrepreneur or are you a large corporation? Right? So as an entrepreneur, the business plan can actually help guide your day-to-day activities and make you stay focused and sort of say, these are my goals, these are my objectives, this is what I want to achieve in 1 to 2 to 3 years. Am I making that progress? Right? Whereas a larger organization may have to have a more detailed business plan to identify little specific activities that they may do to ensure that they're capturing a larger portion of the market. It all depends. But I definitely recommend still writing a business plan. Again, Link North, BEC, NOA, we all have resources available to help with that process. And the level of detail will depend on the business. And if you would prefer to have a leaner business model and just extrapolate using this tool, that's great. But really, it's a precursor tool that helps guide.
Got it. Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Amazing, thank you. Did we have any other questions? No? Ross, I did see you unmute yourself. Did you have anything to add?
No, I was just going to note that my contact information I provided in the chat if you want to reach out to me, and we can talk a little bit more about your business model canvas and talk about how we can support as you develop it.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll also be sending that out in a mass email afterwards as well. So thank you everybody for participating in our business model canvas workshop today. Just like Ross and Jeremy mentioned, Link North does offer these free advisory services where they can more closely help you build your business model canvas in your business plan, if that's what you're looking for. So I'd like to thank our presenter, Jeremy Aloma, and the Business Enterprise Center for sharing their knowledge with us today. A link to this recording will be available after the session. So please be sure to attend the Value Proposition and Marketing Workshop next Monday, October 16th at 10 a.m. Will be delivered by myself, and we'll take a kind of a deep dive onto your value proposition and how to segment your customers there. So the same Zoom link is going to be used for all webinars, and you will be receiving a reminder email as well. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.